going to transition into introducing Lori Gerson. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to mention not only is she representing Yad Vashem, but she's representing a unique, wonderful program called Echoes and Reflections, which we'd like you to take a minute or two to talk about before you begin. And that leads into me saying and begging, this is one time I'm going to beg today, to please complete our evaluation, which will be sent to you at the end of this conference. It is very, very important because we all know that if you didn't get your money's worth today and you know how much you paid for it, we will gladly try to give you refunds. We're not sure about that. But if you're getting information and if you're finding this workshop seminar to be worthwhile, please, please answer our evaluation, because we are dependent on that so that we can continue to do these free of charge and to let all of our sponsors know. Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum of Israel, Echoes and Reflections, a joint project of the ADL, Yad Vashem and USC Shoah Foundation, and the Sarah and Sam Schofer Holocaust Resource Center at Stockton University. Lori Gerson is an educator at Yad Vashem, and after she finished telling us the other day what she was going to do for her presentation, and again, please feel free to put your questions in the chat box. Doug Servey will be posing the questions. We decided to kind of change the title just a little bit to Gems of Yad Vashem's website, because the website is so huge that she started talking about it as her diamonds, her special, special section of the website. So ladies and gentlemen, Lori Gerson from Yad Vashem and Echoes and Reflections, the gems of Yad Vashem's website. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gail. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay, wonderful. Before I begin my presentation or what we're going to do here today, I first of all want to say that everything that's been discussed is a wonderful introduction to what we're going to do today, and hopefully a lot of the discussions we've been talking about will come up in the things that I've chosen to show you. I do just want to make one comment about the age-appropriate teaching of the Holocaust. That's exactly what I work on with my colleagues at Yad Vashem. And I will say that's an entire, let's say, hour-and-a-half session that we do with teachers. We have very defined guidelines for teaching the Holocaust in the younger grades. And by younger, we mean 5th, 6th, and 7th grade mostly. Okay, so I just, if anybody is interested in information on that, I'll just tell you now that for the website, anything I'm doing today, or almost everything I'm doing today, I have put into what I call a Yad Vashem website map that I sent to Gail. She will be sending it to you after the session. So hopefully almost everything we see today, you will be able to find again. I put at the top of that page my email. For some reason you have questions. If you have questions about anything with regards to teaching, that's what I'm at Yad Vashem for. Feel free to reach out to me. Okay, so I just wanted to say that since it was being discussed. Now, like we said, we're going to start with Echoes and Reflections, which is a wonderful website for teachers. And it is exactly that. It's a website for educators. And you can see very clearly, here I'm going to go to I will go to the main page. Here we go. This is the main page you get to when you go to echoesandreflections.org, which you can see up here. And it's also very intuitive to use. It comes very natural. So you are teachers, and so naturally you should explore the whole website. But one of the main things that I want you to look at is the teach section. Okay, so we're going to go to teach section. Now, one of the things that they like to say, and you see here the things that we offer for the teachers. And if you look over here, one of the things that we like to say at Echoes and Reflections is that the lesson plans that we have for our different teaching units are so well laid out for you that you could have forgotten you were teaching about the Holocaust the night before, wake up in the morning and have your class ready. I don't recommend it, but let me show you how well laid out these lesson plans are. And this is one of the places you'll be going to most if you use the Echoes and Reflections website. Take a look at the lesson plans here. You click on that and you will see all of the different units that we have. Each of these units, if you go into them, first of all, they are uniformly presented to you. Okay, so every teaching unit, every lesson plan is set up the same way. So that makes it very easy to use. And so let me give you an example of that. Let's say you wanted to go to the ghettos. You wanted to teach the ghettos. You will see in every subject that we have an opening quote, every single one, and there's an introduction, and this is where the lesson plan is, right in the middle of the page, and you go down and there's always 2 different sessions. And you can see here on the side, can everybody see over here on the right side over here is all of the resources you will need if you give over the class. Okay, so it's very user friendly for teachers. Now, I want to show you another one, just so you can see how easy they are to use. Let's go to Jewish resistance. I'm going to read this quote. Resistance does not have to be with a gun and a bullet. Okay, we're going to bring that up a little bit later. But again, you see it's designed the exact same way. Every single unit, the same way. There's an introduction, the quote, the introduction. They give you discussions, questions, anything to guide the teacher in giving over this class to their students. And over here on the right side is the materials you will need to give over that class. Okay, so very, very user-friendly. And I also just want to point out to you, if you are new to teaching the Holocaust, if it's new for you, I would definitely click over here, Pedagogy for Instruction, and go through these items that we have here. It will very much help you in guiding your teaching. Also, just notice while we're over here, there is a wonderful timeline of the Holocaust. So take a look at that. And I want you to see it. There we go. Okay. It takes a minute to come up because it's but so well done. Is it coming? Okay. Should be coming. Okay, so you can go in, take a look at the timeline. I might even just let that go and I will go to another Echoes and Reflections. You can see right here. Maybe it'll come up in a minute. Okay, wonderful. I'm going to go to Teach again. Okay, and that's over there. And notice also that they have here at Echoes and Reflections, just for Schindler's List. Okay, so we talked about that iconic movie. They have not necessarily a lesson plan like they have in the other units, but you will see a companion resource. You have testimony from survivors, but here you see it's information. You can use exactly what we were talking about to use Schindler's List as an intro, and where you can take the movie and other things that you can build upon when using the movie. Okay, so that's wonderful for what we were talking about before. Let's see if the timeline came up. Ah, there we go. Okay, wonderful. And you can see here, the years are listed over here, main events. It's really worth it to take a look at this and use this for important events that happened during the Holocaust. Okay, so I think that's everything that I wanted to do in Echoes and Reflections. Oh, there's one more thing that I wanted to show you actually. So here, we're gonna go there. There's one little thing here under Not Teach, it's under Prepare. I wanted to show you this. And there's a lot of stuff here for teachers to take advantage of, webinars, online courses, but I do wanna show you this one, Students' Toughest Questions. Okay, I'm gonna show you how to use that. You click on there, and they have questions that quite honest, that we ask all the time. Students probably ask these all the time in your classrooms, and they give you an answer. It's not long, it's concise, but it's something that you can build on if you need to. Okay, but these are general questions that teachers have found they're asked in the classroom, and this is here to help you. It's an additional teaching tool, and I just wanted to point that out. Okay, now we will move on to Yad Vashem's website. Now, what Rob said, he a little bit stole my thunder, but that's okay, because I don't have to repeat what he said. He told you already everything that Yad Vashem does. And on top of all of that, and I think he did mention this too, everything we provide, we're trying to provide internationally. So what that means is a lot of the things on our website, lesson plans, information, lots of those things, not only do we have to address all the different the different things that Yad Vashem does. For example, we have to address the research and the collections, and of course the education department, but also the digital collections, and we're going to see some of that. But they also want to do it for the whole world. So there's Hebrew, there's English, there's French. Okay, so the website reflects the fact that Yad Vashem is not only an educational teaching institution, that there are other things that happen. That being said, there's a lot. There is so much on here that teachers can use. So I encourage you to, so to speak, get lost. And I mean that in a good way, to get lost on our website, because there's so much out there. That being said, I want to direct you to some of this stuff, some of the items that you can use. Okay, so I hope that that will be helpful for you. Now, one of the things that we also talked about, Rob was emphasizing the complexity and always having to give that over. He's 100% right. And then we also mentioned a little bit later, and we talked about that, and that is the human story. That is giving over the human story. One of the things that we like to talk about in the education department of Yad Vashem is that historians give over the history. As educators, we want to give meaning to the history. And what I mean by that is that it is important to know how many Jews were killed. It is important to know where anti-Semitism and hatred and looking at somebody as the other can lead to. That is very important. However, we also need to remember that, just like we said, and we've been saying this, I'm not the first one to say it here, that history is made up of actions that people take. So what we say is, yes, I can hear that 7,000 Jews were shot in one of the shooting pits, but I think a student has a lot more to learn from, let's say, we'll use Anne Frank just because we've been talking about her, about Anne Frank's struggles while she's in hiding. And her struggles not just being in hiding, but if we remember, she's talking about struggles, and I have a teenage daughter, right? Struggles with her mother, struggles with the other people there, what she wants to do, normal teenage angst and things like that. So it's a good example. We're going to look at other examples, and we're not just going to focus on her, but I do want to point out, we really believe that there's much more to learn from looking at the people, the human story, who went through the experience and the decisions they made, and how they dealt with what was happening to them. And when we talk about the different human stories, there are different stories to tell. First and foremost, there is a story of the victim. Then we have we do the perpetrators, we do have the righteous among the nations, we do have the bystanders. We're actually gonna cover hopefully all of that today. So everybody buckle up, right? This is gonna be a whirlwind ride. We're gonna jump right in with that little introduction. And I'm gonna try and go across, you can see I'm gonna try and go across the web page like that as best as I can, just so that everybody can have it organized. First and foremost, now this is funny, I had this planned already. We have some digital collections that I want to show you that can be very useful to you when you're with your students. And I do want to show you, just by chance, I had picked David Cherkuviak to show you. We have here what's called the central database of Shoah victims' names. I only opened up a separate one because I can never spell his name, so I had it all ready to go. So it'd be ready to go. Now, we put in his name, and I want to show you, this is how Yad Vashem keeps track of the victims of the Holocaust, the Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. And why is it important to us? Because one of the main missions of Yad Vashem is giving back the names to the victims. We know so many of them were killed anonymously. We are doing our best to give them back their names, and to as many as we can to give them back their stories. And that's really important. That's what we're talking about, the human story. So if we go and we want to look up David Cherkuviak, who we've been talking about, right? And we talked about his diary. So we search him. Now, a number of names come up. We have to maybe figure out how old he is, and we see a few for Lodz. I'm going to jump in and tell you this is the one we're looking for because I've done the research already. It might take you a few minutes. Now, I want to show you a teacher victory, okay? So first of all, we're talking about giving back the names, very important. Take a look at this, what we call page of testimony. And let me take a step back. What are the pages of testimony Yad Vashem? If you're not familiar with them, this is one of the main ways that Yad Vashem started figuring out who all these Jews who were killed in the Holocaust, who they were. Because there were some lists, but it wasn't enough. So Yad Vashem started collecting these pages of testimony where somebody who survived or somebody who knew somebody who was killed in the Holocaust would come and testify about that person, that they had been killed in the Holocaust. And if they had information about them, if they had a picture, they would sometimes include that. If they knew where they were killed, sometimes they just knew they never heard from them. If they were in America, they never heard from them again. A bunch of different ways, but this is how we now have, I think, roughly somewhere in the range of, out of the 6 million Jews, maybe 4.7 million names. And unfortunately, even though we'd love to get them all, we know we won't be able to get them all because unfortunately entire families and sometimes villages were wiped out. But that's our goal. Now I want you to look at this one. I picked it first of all because it's in English, and now we've been talking about him, so that's wonderful. Look filled out by, can you see here we have the name? There's not a whole lot of information here. You can see it says David Cherkuviak. But the bottom is who filled out this page of testimony. It is filled out by a girl. Her name is Kate Gaddis. And where does she live? In Fort Worth, Texas. Now, why is she filling out, or how does she know about David Cherkuviak? And the story that we know after investigation is that there was a teacher who was using David Cherkuviak's diary. They were discussing him in the classroom, and one of her students was so interested in learning about him, she went to Yad Vashem's webpage, she looked up his name on the database, and she couldn't find him. She said, how is that possible? Everybody at Yad Vashem knew about him, but apparently for some reason, there was never a page of testimony filled out for him, and she filled it out. And for that teacher, we understand that her student really understood what it means, the value of a name, a person, and their story. So I would say it's a victory, or something to be proud of. Now let's go back to the Yad Vashem webpage. So those are the pages of testimony. I want to show you also in the digital collections, we have a photo archive, and you're going to get a whole session on using photos. I'm just going to show you how you can use our photo archive to maybe search for some photos. And what's really, when you use the Yad Vashem photo archive, you know that it's a reliable source. And not only that, you're going to get information. If, let's say, you click right here, let's see. Here's the page. You're gonna get all this information about the photo, when Yad Vashem got it, when they think it was from, a lot of important information, and it's valid information. So that's very important. There's a lot of stuff on the website. You want to make sure it's coming from a valid source. Okay, so our digital collections, and there's a search here. I'll go back. The photo archive, you can search any topic you want. So it can be very useful, okay? I'll show you here. I'll just do one search for you. Let's say Bergen-Belsen, which was a concentration camp that then became a DP camp. So let's say I'm doing something on the Jews after the Holocaust in the DP camps, and I wanna talk about, oh, they had performances. I know, I heard about that. So I go to perform, oh, I can't spell anymore. I go to performance, and here we go. Okay, so we see plays that were being performed in the Bergen-Belsen displaced persons camp after the war. Okay, so just to give you an example of how that works. Okay. The righteous database, we are going to do more on the righteous, but I just want to show it to you while it's here. And again, this is very useful if you, one of the things that's really useful, let's just say you don't really know their names because you haven't learned them yet, but what you can do is look up here. And if you are studying Hungary, then you want to talk about somebody who was a rescuer in Hungary. And let's be clear, also definitions are important. A righteous among the nation just is a non-Jew that risked their lives to save Jews during the Holocaust. Okay, I know we talked about Jews saving Jews, and we're going to get to that as well. But here is a list of all the non-Jews that saved Jews during the Holocaust. And look at this, we have 30 pages. We'll get back to the righteous and see them in teaching units, which will be a little more helpful, but just so you know it's here. And lastly, I do want to show you just this tab here on survivor testimonies. So you know it's there. I think you're also going to have a whole unit on movies, but here are full-length testimonies. And of course, they come up in English. I'm not going to click there now, but when we say full length, we mean one of them is 5 hours. It's everything this man said. Okay, so you might be interested in that. I'm just letting you know. I want to, and here is Hannah, what was her name? Bar Yesha that he spoke about. Okay, so we'll talk about her. This is where her full-length movie is that I was talking about. But I want to show you this part here really quickly. So the video testimonies resource center. This can be very useful in putting together a lesson. What you can do here is there are little clips from survivor testimonies, about 5 minutes or something like that. And you can search by topic, or you can search by place. So if we want to search by topic, let's say I want to do return to life, which by the way is very important. How did they go back to any semblance of life after what happened to them? And if we go down here, you see here, by the way, is Hannah Bar Yesha and how a little clip on returning to life and how she became an educator in Israel. Exactly what Rob talked about. So I want to show you where to find it on the webpage. Some of them are in English, a lot of them are Hebrew with English subtitles. So just keep that in mind for your knowledge, okay? Okay, so that's the, let me just make sure. Okay, so that's what I wanted to do with the digital collections. Now we're going to move on. You can see here, this is for the educators, education and e-learning. We're gonna keep going back to this, but I will keep going back to this so that you know where we are. And this is where we have most of our teaching materials and teaching units put together. So let's start with educational materials. Like I said, you're going to do videos with Cheryl, I believe. Okay, now, this is very interesting. There's a lot of stuff here. We're not going to be able to get to all of it today, but I'm going to point out a few things. This is very interesting based on the discussion we just had. We have, I'm going to turn that off. We don't need the music. The war and the Holocaust, questions about the past and the future. And what we have are so far are 5. Maybe they'll add more, but I can show you. They have these big questions people ask. Now, Echoes and Reflections gave you short answers, and sometimes you need short answers. But look what Yad Vashem did here. We discussed this topic exactly. How is the Holocaust? How is it a unique event? Well, let's click on there and see what happens. And we get, here's Christopher Browning. We spoke about him. Here's his answer. Here's Yehuda Bauer. Here's his answer on how is it unique. Here's another Israeli scholar. Here we have a few more people. Here we have Omer Bartov. So this is fascinating because you can hear different opinions to each of these answers, and it gives you an opportunity to listen and think critically. Your students can listen to the answers, and they can pick one maybe that's speaks when it comes to answering these very difficult questions to answer. Okay, so I want to show you that. Now we're going to go back to educational materials. Okay, and I just want to show you this section here, key historical concepts. We have these 9 little videos pop up. And they're just very useful. I want you to know that they're there. You can, here we have the key historical concepts. I'm going to show you they're literally about 1.5 minutes. And you know what, let's just do one so you get an idea of what they're like. We'll do the badge. There might be something there you didn't know. So everybody's seen the badge. Your students will definitely recognize that. Can everybody, there we go. Okay, can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Yeah? We're good?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. Now, one of the things I don't, that you saw that was very short clip, but there's actually a lot in there. One of the important things I think is that everybody's very used to seeing the yellow star badge. People are less used to seeing the one that looks now like the Israeli flag. And you'll see that a lot in the Warsaw pictures, because that was the badge they used in the general government in Poland. So that I wanted to point out. And also, if you listened at the end, they actually, in that little clip, they gave you very good discussion points that you can use with your students. Not only did it how it isolated the Jews, how people looked at them, how they felt when they had to wear it. So I thought for a short little video, it actually had a lot of information, and all of those videos are like that. Or they explain things just in a very, they explain it very well, and they're very useful. So I wanted to show you that. Now, we're going to go back to education and e-learning again, educational materials. And we are going
to Lori, sorry to interrupt, but there was no sound to the YouTube video that you played.
No. Ooh. Should I do that again, or were there subtitles? I forgot. I wasn't. Let me see. Wait, let me go back. I'll go back. I need to share. You know what? I've done this before. Hold on one second. I'm sorry that you did not hear that. Let me just.
When you
more. Yeah, I know. I've done the share computer sound. Okay, I apologize. Let's do it again. Then you'll understand what I just said.
The marking of Jews for the purposes of identification and segregation existed long before the Nazi regime. During the Middle Ages, Jews were marked by special clothing items, such as distinctive hats, with the aim of humiliating them and separating them from the rest of society. The Nazi regime began marking Jews with the September 1939 invasion of Poland, a practice that spread rapidly to other countries. The German authorities issued decrees that varied from place to place. Hence, several types of markings existed. In some areas, Jews were marked with a yellow badge on the front of their clothes. In others, a white Armor of David. Beyond the sense of exclusion and humiliation, being marked also caused fear and anxiety among Jews. It implied a sense of lawlessness, of their being legitimate targets. Also, being caught without a badge carried severe punishment.
Okay, now does everybody understand what I just said before? Everybody's students and all the pictures we normally see from the Holocaust, because so many of the countries were wearing the yellow badges, that it might surprise, or students might not realize that there was another armband that looked like the Israeli flag, and that was the one they wore in the Warsaw Ghetto. You'll see that a lot in those pictures. Also, like I said before, at the end, they do give you really good discussion points in that little video. There's a lot of information and a lot of useful information, I think, for educators. And something like the badge, you should know, just because you mentioned age appropriate, this is something that definitely could be discussed in the younger grades. How we have diaries, and we have about how younger children, 10, 11 years old, how they felt when they had to wear the badge and be outside, how they felt when their friends stopped talking to them. And when you want to talk about anti-Semitism, a fifth grader or sixth grader can understand that all of a sudden their friends won't talk to them because they're Jewish. And that's anti-Semitism. So when we talk about age appropriate, these are some of the things that we do. So I'll just add that in since it came up in the discussion. Okay, now we're going to the website. I'm going to go back to educational materials. This is our educators area. We're going to go to lesson plans. Now, when we do lesson plans, okay, I want to show you a couple things. First of all, I do want to show you, we saw on Echoes and Reflections how they had resistance. So I want to show you a similar unit that we have here for, here it is, spiritual resistance during the Holocaust. And I just want to pause here for 1 second. And I want to emphasize the secondary name of this: maintaining a normal way of life in an abnormal world. I'm going to focus on that for 1 second. When I do my job at Yad Vashem, so many people ask me, they say, it must be so depressing, you work at Yad Vashem. And I will say that if things didn't make me sad, sometimes I'm in the wrong business, okay? But that being said, we like to say that, and I was alluding to this before, that when I teach the Holocaust to students, I don't want to necessarily talk with them about how the Jews died. I want to talk to them about how the Jews lived. And what do I mean by that? There was a long period of time before the Jews were killed. And lots of things were happening. And obviously there's history, there's context, but the human story is maintain, how did they and how did they try to maintain a normal life in an abnormal world? Or one could also phrase it is spiritual resistance. When we talk about that, how does one maintain your one's humanity when it's being taken away from you? Because if we study the Jews under German occupation before they were killed, and sometimes we get so overwhelmed with the sheer number and how they were killed and what happened to them that we forget there's a long story along the way. And as educators, Rob, we touched upon this, the decisions that people make, the human story, what we call choiceless choices. I'm not sure if that's a phrase some of you are familiar with, but there's that no human being should have to make. Parents had to make choices, family members, that nobody should ever have to make. And we really believe that this is where the emphasis of the teaching should be, because we do believe if we want to teach resilience and we want to teach empathy, teach our students to cope with difficult times, then they can draw inspiration from some of these people. Okay, so I just want to point that out. So I want to show you this. It's a lesson plan. There's introduction, there's your objective, and there's different ways that Yad Vashem is pointing out the Jews resisted other than, like we said, with a gun. So resistance with a camera, right? You're going to have a whole unit on pictures. And they give you here discussions to have, use pictures to use. And by the way, one of the things with the Yad Vashem website you can see here is there's so many places here where you can just click and you just get a from clicking on the word that's there. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out to you. Didn't come up, but I don't want to wait for it, but you'll see all throughout here. But they're also showing you where you can find the information. Here, you're going to have a whole unit on poetry, but here we also have it in one of our teaching units. So I want to show you that. Okay, so, and you'll see they give you different things to work with. And documentation, we're going to talk about that soon. So now we're going to go to another unit. We go back to education, e-learning, educational materials. Okay, and you could also, lesson plans again, or I guess I could have gone up to the arrows. And I want to show you here also. Now, I do want to show you, let me just, I do want to show you when we talked about, Rob talked about Jews with these grand plans to try and save the Jews' lives when they were aware of what was going on. And that's an important thing to teach because the Jews weren't always aware of what was in store of them. And we have to also take that into consideration. But I do want to show you this unit. You can see it here. I'm going to click on it. Mutual assistance within the ghetto walls. And one of the things that is remarkable that happened in almost all of the ghettos, and here we do use the Warsaw Ghetto as an example, is I would say the Jews were trying to save the Jews as it was happening in the ghettos themselves under the occupation. What do I mean by that? Here we have the objectives, you have your introduction, historical background, they give you a lot of information, pictures. Let me see here, self-help. I want to talk about self-help society in the Warsaw Ghetto. It was the Jews who were trying to work with the little bit of food that came in. They were trying to work with the very extremely limited resources they had, and they were trying to help as many Jews as they could, even though they knew, and we have quotes, that it was something they couldn't do. They tried, and again, this is the how do you maintain your humanity when it's being taken of you? How do you lead a normal life? Because in a normal world, you will give charity. You know, when you see pictures, you're going to do that in the Warsaw Ghetto, and the Jews are begging on the street. If they're begging, what do we know is happening? The people are giving them money. They wouldn't be sitting there if nobody gave them money at all. So we do know that there was charity going on. We do know that the of, let's say, the soup kitchens, and that's a fabulous topic to discuss. The Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto were getting 183 calories a day at one point, and they had like 40 soup kitchens where they're giving out the little food that they have. It's a remarkable story that I think that's where some of the most important lessons are when teaching the Holocaust to students. There's other important, but I think it's it's up there as one of the most important. Emanuel Ringelblum, we're going to see him because if you've heard his name before, and especially if you've seen the movie Who Will Write Our History, he was the one that ran the Oneg Shabbat archive, the underground archive in the Warsaw Ghetto. We're going to see that in a second, but he also was in charge. He ran the self-help group, and he was very involved in that as well. And he got people on board with him. He recruited people to help him. Okay, so here's a unit that you can use with regards to that, and they give you all different kinds of things, poems and pictures and questions and discussions for the classroom. Okay, so I hope that will be useful for you. Now, we talked about the human story. This is something here, I'll go back up to here. Maybe that'll be a little easier. If I go up to here, we go back to lesson plans. And there's one more I want you to see. And we're going to keep the focus. What's interesting is we're going to still keep the focus on the victim, but we're going to start talking about the perpetrator, because we know this is for the older students, 11th and grappling with and we grapple with it. How was it humanly possible that this could happen? How was it humanly possible? So here, this is fascinating. Teaching about perpetrators, okay, a case study about a deportation of German Jews from Dusseldorf to Riga. Dusseldorf was in Germany, German Jews, it says it right, to Riga, which was in Latvia, I believe. Now, I want to show you the source first. Okay, well, there is a teacher's guide, and I'll give you the introduction. I'll explain to you what's going on, but let me show you the source, and then it'll be easier for me to explain what this is about. There was a deportation, and what we happen to have from that deportation is pretty unbelievable. There was a woman who survived. Her name is Hilda Sherman. We have her memoir. Remember her during the deportation. But you know what we also have? We have the German officer who was in charge of the deportation. We have his report. Now, what's fascinating is you click here, take a look at this. Here it comes, hopefully. See, oh, sorry about that. A little delay. I don't know why my internet is unstable. It should be, here we go. They have literally put next to each other how the German officer, Salater, describes the preparing for the transport and what Hilda Sherman writes happened to her during preparing the transport. We have here the same thing as the boarding of the train, the exact same scene, but the views of the two different people, obviously. We have the perpetrator and we have the victim. So what I really like about this unit, that you can talk about the perpetrator and you're not forgetting the victim. So that's also wonderful, I think. And I just want to show you something. And I want to try and point some things out to you. They have the journey's end, and you'll read through it and you'll see it's also, I want to point out, if you are teaching older students and you're teaching anti-Semitism and you're teaching Nazi ideology, and you want to talk about the dehumanization of the other, this is also a wonderful unit for that, because I will show you two things. But first, I just want to show you, he's giving, I just want to point this out, a conclusion afterwards. And look what he writes. Now, remember, he's reporting to his superiors. So if you're to your superior, you want to make yourself look efficient and competent and the best you can be. So what does he write here? Look at this. In order to supply the Jews with water, it is essential that the Gestapo get in touch with the Reichsbahn, that was the train company, and 1-hour stops every day at a railway station in the Reich. Because the timetable, the Reichsbahn was reluctant to comply with the transport commander's wishes. The Jews are on the road for 14 hours or more before the transport leaves and have used up all the drinks they have taken with them. Now, you might think, wow, he's concerned about the Jews drinking. Seems like he's worried about that, but continue on. And what does he say? When they are not provided with water during the trip, they try, in spite of the prohibition, to leave the train at every possible spot or ask others to get them water. Why does he want them to have water? So his process will be faster, so he will be more efficient. So I just want to point out that one little thing. There's a bunch of things like that within this document here that are very useful in discussing the dehumanization process, how was it humanly possible, and Nazi ideology. Now, I want to go back to the unit for a second because I jumped ahead to the source. I want to show you this presentation here that we have. And actually, you know what? You have it there, but in the teacher's guide, you can see it as a PDF, and I think it's easier to use as the PDF. So I'm just going to go to that, same thing. Here's a picture of the Jews waiting to be deported. And here is, look, his statistics from the deportation. Okay, if you, again, want to talk about dehumanization, look at how he marks them off like somebody's counting jelly beans in a big jar, or they have to, there's very useful stuff in this lesson teaching that process. And I'm sure that when Cheryl talks about the Auschwitz album, it's also with older students, a very useful tool when talking about Nazi ideology and the dehumanization process. I'm going to show you where to find it on our website, but I know Cheryl's doing it with you, so I won't go into that. They do bring you here. Hilda's, some of her important, and they also bring a little bit of information about the Nazi officer, about the German officer. What's interesting here is that we all the last thing about this teaching unit. When we have the sources, the German officer, what happens to him after the war is fascinating, and how he appeals to become a police officer again. And you read about it, discussing also exactly what Rob was talking about with ordinary men, and talking about what motivated or how people were brought to do something. So this can piggyback if you're talking about the complexity. Let's say you're talking about Eichmann, or you're talking about or Schindler and the world that he functioned in. So I think, okay, now we're gonna go back again. So that was that unit I wanted to show you. Okay. And just so you know, also here we do have, because I know that Rob went over it, so I wanted to share it with you, to lesson plans. You can see it's the same place. We're in the same section that we were in before.
Hi, Lori. Sorry to interrupt, but this is your 5-minute warning. I apologize.
It's my 5-minute warning. Okay, so you know what? I just want to show you then. I'm going to wrap it up really quickly. I want to show you this, Eva Hyman interactive diary. By the way, you're going to get the website map. Take a look at what I was going to show you and email questions, ask away, and take a look at what was there. Here, Eva Hyman's interactive diary. I don't know, we're talking about new icons. I'm not sure I would categorize as an icon, but I don't know if you were aware, last year she came out on Instagram. Was everybody aware of this? What if a girl on the Holocaust had an Instagram? They used this Eva Hyman. We have an interactive diary with a lot of information. And again, if you have to do a lesson online because of Corona, this is a lesson online. I want to show you one more thing. We have online exhibitions that I want to show you. And I want to show you, I'll show you that. We have ready to print exhibitions. You can get, they're free, and you get them digitally. They are fabulous. You can either set them up like a museum, or now during Corona, if you will be teaching from your computer, you have them digital. So you can make a PowerPoint, you can use them in the classroom, and there's a whole bunch of information with them. Thank you for the 5-minute warning. Here, the little icon of Yad Vashem over there with the 6 things. You can always get back. There's the Righteous Nations over here. Wonderful, wonderful information. And you'll see on the website map where you can go for righteous. And the last thing that I do want to show you is, how much more time do I have? Do people want to ask questions? Oh, I want to show you the massive online courses, because we discussed that. If you go to Education e-Learning, there's online courses. Okay, and here, Rob mentioned them, and you can find them. And lastly, Stuck Away, I don't know why it's in Programming for Educators in Jewish Frameworks. Okay, I just want to show you. You can search by age, go to high school, and there's a lesson here on Righteous Among the Nations. It's a whole unit on teaching that alone. Very useful with handouts for your students. And the last thing I do want to show you, and I promise this will be the last thing, if I go back, I do want to show you a poster unit, because again, you can use it on the computer. And I know that that's a problem you might be having. And this really speaks to the struggle to maintain your life. I'm going to go right to where I left off. You're going to be surprised it's in Hebrew, but click, and it's in English. No problem. And they give you questions to ask. And here I'm going to show you even one better. Hanukkah, Christmas, you can use the same, it's holidays, what the importance of celebrating those with your family. Look at this. I want to show you, is this here we go, learning competitions. Okay, click, you'll get the English, and that's where the questions are. Sport tournaments, right? Basketball, information, questions to ask on the side over here. It's a wonderful unit. Go through it. And these were posters found in the Vilna ghetto that really tell us a lot about the struggle to make in a world of chaos. When everything's being ruptured, you want to maintain continuity. Okay, so that's the story. Yeah.
These were wonderful, and I wondered if you would take a minute to just go back to the
Sure.
ready to print, because this is something
Yes,
that
yes.
we
Those
need
were
today.
okay. Yes.
So there are two things that we need today, because so many of us will be teaching what I call virtually online.
Yes.
So now we know where we can get these
Yeah.
posters. And, you know, I find sports is a theme that students love, particularly starting in middle school. But if you would go to the ready
Way,
to print,
I'm just, you have an entire unit on sports, just so you know, on the
yes.
website. If you want to find, if you want to email me and I'll find it for you. But here, I'm going back to ready to print.
So I'd
Okay,
like to just
and
take a minute out that you can
there we
all
go.
look at, if you would
Yeah.
show us the different
Sure.
themes that are there.
Absolutely. First of all, this is a general historical discussion / going through the entire Holocaust. Obviously, can't go through the entire Holocaust, but, and I want to show you how they work, okay, and how to order them, because I spoke with her and she said, I'll save you an email as long as you're asking. Here you can see the layout. You can see all the panels at once. Okay, this is what you're going to get. They're visual, but it has information for you. Okay, so it's very visual, especially if you're teaching online. And I want to go back over here and you can see each panel close up before you actually order it. They are free, so order away. Rescued by Jews during the Holocaust. So Rob touched on that. This is more about Israel. But here we have women in the Holocaust and the different issues with mothers and friendships and love and family. Wonderful topics in that one. Now you're going to have a whole unit with Liz on art and Holocaust. So here you have panels that you can order and digital downloads that you can order about art and Holocaust. We have children, and you're going to do the Auschwitz album. And here we have, you can actually order this. So you will have some of the photographs that you can use after you learn about the Auschwitz album.
And
we do have a Auschwitz album.
Right, we'll be talking about the Auschwitz album later this week when we're doing photography, which is great. So first we're going to learn about it, and then we can print it out and use it. And we can send it digitally.
Right, exactly. And right, and we do have also a teacher's guide to teaching the Auschwitz album, which Cheryl's going to do for you. But again, it's on the website if you want to further investigate. So I hope that was helpful.
It was excellent.
I actually think I got to almost everything that I wanted to cover.
Okay, so we have a lot of questions that we want to get to.
Oh, a lot of questions. Okay.
And I'm going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, our director our executive director of the New Jersey Commission on Holocaust Education.
Okay, well, let's hope I can answer that. Okay.
Doug, you're on.
Lori, that was wonderful. There's going to be a quiz, everybody, after this to make sure you got all that down. Like you said, I really like the idea where you says, go get lost. I mean, that's an excellent idea.
And again, if there's, and I cannot tell you, that's what I'm at Yad Vashem for. I am there to service teachers like you on what we have in terms of educating students. So if you have any questions, if there's anything you want to teach and we have something and you are having trouble finding it, please be in touch with me and I will direct you as best as I can. Okay, so keep that in mind.
I really like the fact that you have an interview with Christopher Browning, because I know a lot of us use his book and they show the students. I'm going to watch that after we're done today just to see what he has to say when I use that text.
Absolutely.
One of the questions wanted to know is, are photos in Yad Vashem's archive free to use for educational purposes?
Yes. Okay, so let me, I'm going to my screen here. I'll show you exactly. We use them all the time. I'm going to show you. I meant to show you that. So I'll take 2 minutes I'll just take a minute to show you. Here were the online photo archive, and it's basically, if you know how to, all of you are a little younger than I am, and you know are much better at using a computer. You pick any picture, click on it, and here we go. You come down here, you have all the information, you just go over here, save image as.
Laura, you have to put the screen share on.
You want to do.
You took the screen share off.
Yes, I did. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'll go big. technical problems. I apologize.
No, that's
And
okay.
we will go to the website. Okay, here we go. So here you have the picture information they have. You just do the right click on your mouse, save image, copy, use it as you wish. It's a resource for you. Okay, and in fact, some of our units will take you directly. I'll just show you one thing. It's actually on the main page here. We have this new unit on the Oneg Shabbat, who will write our history, the underground archive. An archive sounds boring until your students learn they had candy wrappers in there, ring the doorbell when there's 3 families in one room. They had doorbell codes. I mean, all of these things are in the Oneg Shabbat. Fascinating. The archive that they had. I wanted to show you. Wait, what were we talking? Oh, here. If you want to go here, Yad Vashem photo collections, and look what it does for you. This is actually just, I want to show you something. They make it very easy. It'll take you back to the photo collection, but it will already have written in Oneg Shabbat. And then all we have regarding Oneg Shabbat come up for you. Okay, so they do, we try to help you as much as we can, and you'll see it in a minute.
Please
Okay,
remember that these
did I answer your question?
And I want to just add to it that I'm sure I'm correct in this, but you can correct me, that these photos are copywritten, so certainly they're available to use for education purposes within your classrooms.
Right.
But if you're considering printing them, using them for a book as something else, you must ask permission.
that goes with, yes.
These are only
Thank you,
for
Gail. You're
education
100% right, but you see how it, exactly. And took you right here to Oneg Shabbat, and then all the pictures that we have that have something to do with the Oneg Shabbat, with the Underground Archive in Warsaw, they're all there for you. So we have certain ones in our unit, but we have even more in the photo archive. And there's just, you just keep going. Sometimes you just keep going and going, and there's just lots of pictures. Okay, any other questions? I hope I answered your question.
One of the teachers said that they use policeman stuff in their class for their 9th grade unit. I have to know, did the guy get his job back when he came back to Germany after the war? Because I know the students are going to ask that.
They're going to ask that. Well, you have history about it was put on trial, and then he appealed, and yes, he did get his job back.
Can you, some of us don't know
and that's in the unit.
Okay.
Some of us do not know.
Oh, when we did the unit, okay, so when we compared, here I'll show you. I will go back to where we were. Education
Can you just
materials.
go back a minute just to tell us what you were referring to about a policeman? Because some of us don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, when I showed you, I'm just checking to see it's in, sometimes, lesson plans, that's what I thought. When we did lesson plans and I showed you how was it teaching about the perpetrators, how was it humanly possible? And we talked about Paul Salicher, who was the German who ran the deportation. They talk about here, you can see, to conclude, and it brings the discussion to one more level. When you talk about what happened to him after and how he appealed, and you read what he says he says, I was dutiful. I did what the German government asked me to do. Therefore, I will make a very good policeman for the next government that we have in Germany. That's the gist of the post-war perspective. And it brings a whole different, takes a discussion to a whole different level, I think, here. And evaluating here, you see human behavior. Okay, so as far as I know, he was. If I'm wrong, I will let you all know. But I think he was reinstated as a police officer.
You said before, and I know people have discussed this because we're redoing our curriculums as far as age-appropriate material.
Yes. Okay.
You said that you and Yad Vashem have spent significant amount of time doing that.
Mm-hmm.
What is usually your cutoff? Is something that you might use with sophomores and juniors in high school that you would not use with, let's say, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders? Is there a specific?
There's a lot. I mean, to me, 6th grade is still pretty young, and we recommend Rob mentioned how in Israel they start very, very young. And like I said, we have rules for teaching the younger children. One of them, it's interesting, is that you use a story. Why do you use a story? Because a story is a safe framework for a child. Children hear stories from the time that they're babies. So if it's a story, it's a safe place for them to be already, even though what they're learning could traumatize. We don't want to traumatize. We always use, I personally like to use up until 7th grade, I always like to use a story that has a righteous among the nation and a survivor. And again, we have another phrase we use, safely in, safely out. When you 8th grade already, they can hear about somebody like Aunt Frank. I don't like using night in 8th grade. I like using it for older because there's some very gruesome scenes that are described. But there are other stories that you can tell where the children themselves did not survive, like Eva Hyman, the diary we saw, Anne Frank, she didn't survive either. Personally, up until at least 6th grade or 7th grade, I do like to use a child that survives because we have those stories. I think it's a good way for them to, we talk about building blocks. In math, we get building blocks. You can't learn 3 times 2 before you learn 2 plus 2 plus 2. We understand. Sometimes we understand it a little bit less when we're teaching the Holocaust, but if we lay a foundation and they're not traumatized earlier on, then they'll be able to build on that and have those really important discussions when they get older and not be we all know people, students that can't even hear about the Holocaust. They can't look, they can't deal. We're trying to avoid that. So those, I hope that answered your question. We have books that we can recommend that you can buy from our website. And by the way, when we use a story, and we have really good ones at Yad Vashem, but it doesn't have to be ours. The story itself will guide what you teach in class. So for example, if the child was in a ghetto, then you talk about a ghetto. If the child's father went to fight off in the forest, you can mention that. And you can talk about how there were some Jews that separated from their families and never came back. You can talk about that, but in a book like that with younger children, usually the mom will survive with the child if you're talking about younger children, because even though the father died, you still want them to learn in a safe space when they're younger. When they're older, they can obviously handle it better. So I hope that helped you. If you're very interested, if you teach 5th or 6th grade, be in touch with me. I'm happy to set you to what we have and what we think is and units we have also, and different themes you can use. One nice thing in 5th grade, for example, is a focus on life before the war. And as soon as you talk about life before the war, and especially with younger children, as soon as you, like we mentioned, sports, and we have wonderful quotes about going to after-school activities, going ice skating in the winter. I was on this team. I played with my friends after school. Students then start to see the victims as people just like them. And that's important. That's important to lay the foundation that these victims were not brought into the world as victims. They were brought in as regular people just like us. And of course, then empathy builds and they can relate better when they understand that these were people that lived in families and had friends just like them. So we have a whole unit on life before the war, and it's very age appropriate for, let's say, 5th grade. In 6th grade, you can focus on family and how important family was. And we have a unit on family, and I can guide you to that. And in 7th grade already, you can move into starting to teach them about, what was I saying? I'm like losing my English here, about spiritual resistance. You can talk about, we have a wonderful story. A boy who went to help another little boy beg for money. And he got a lot of money because he was dressed better. And many times we hear that Jews who looked like they had a better chance of surviving will be able to get more, because if a child looked like they were not about to not survive the night, then people would rather give their money to somebody who might, and this, again, this is a choiceless choice, but this little boy is out there, he's helping the other boy. He sees he's not getting money, he stands there, he gets a lot of money. And you know what? There's a toy store across the street and he wants to go buy toys. And he says, you know what? And he has this internal struggle. We have the story and he gives it to the boy. He says, that's not what I'm here for. Now, can you imagine teaching ethical behavior in a world where ethics have basically disappeared? And you can teach that in, I think, 7th grade. We start moving into, because you talk about the ghettos and the hard life, you can teach stories like that about, we have numerous stories about children. We do about the smugglers and how they risk their lives too. That's maybe with the older kids a little bit, the children who were the smugglers, and that gets into choiceless choices because mothers that had to possibly send their young children because they were the ones that could squeeze through the walls of the Warsaw Ghetto. And this is what we call a choiceless choice. I'll just give you an example. As long as we're talking about the child smugglers, a mother's alone. Let's say her husband's died already. She has 3 young children. They have no food. They have no food. Who can fit through the walls of the ghetto? Her 10-year-old, not her. But what could very well happen to a 10-year-old that goes out on his own to the non-Jewish side? And what happens if he's caught? That's a choiceless choice. They have no food, so they're all going to die. But if her 10-year-old goes and tries to smuggle food, she's risking his life. And again, these are choices. Now, that's for older kids. I jumped ahead. That is more for older kids. But we start laying foundation with the younger kids and the story about begging for food. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry. No, I'm going on and on. I'm sorry.
I know.
I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about proper education.
Everybody gets the evaluation. And thank you very, very much.
Okay, remember, email me, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.
Send out Lori's email address. I want to, Lori, if you would take your screen down so that I can introduce.
Sorry.
That's no problem. I'd like to introduce Irvin. Irvin, just give a shout out, unmute yourself, because none of this would have happened today without Irvin and Morgan. Morgan, unmute yourself. Just give a shout out.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. It was a great day. We appreciate everyone's participation.
Bottom line, I could not have done it without the 2 of them. Bottom line, and our security people here at Stockton. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for setting our record. We had close to 100 people. Please fill out the evaluation. You'll be getting it in a few minutes. Very, very important to us. Educators, you'll be getting your PDF in a few minutes also, or sometime today. Spread the word. We have 4 more days. We do have space available today. No surprise, with the combination of Dr. Robert Rosette, Lori Gerson, we had our highest registration, or maybe it just wasn't a beach day today. We don't know, but please join us. Thank you all. And can we please clap for Lori? And Lori, send that clap on to Rob Rosette for us.
I just want to say that kudos to all of you for even attempting to teach one of those difficult subjects in the world. And I want to give a shout out to all of you. And you can see we're very passionate about it. So just be in touch with us. Keep in touch, all of you. All right. Yes, I look forward to hearing from you.
Keep in touch. Keep that human story going.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep it going. And remember.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And remember, the time is now. Okay. The time is now. We're reflecting, gaining knowledge to make a better future and to help us all as we're moving into the digital age of teaching online. Thank you, everybody. Registration's still open for the next 3 days. Thank you all. And now Morgan, Irvin, and Gail are going to clap for you all. Thank you. Be well. Stay safe. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.